Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us as you all are logging on. Please feel free to know that you can ask questions and you can put those in the chat as we go through this conversation. I'm Patricia McKinney. I am the Director of Small Business and Member Programming here at the Greater Memphis Chamber. And I have the pleasure of serving alongside our Small Business Council. With us today, we do have our two leaders in their own right, Gwendolyn Tucker and Dottie Summerfield Justy, who will join in the question and answer session, but also they have some valuable information to share when we talk about certifications. So this series has been quite a valuable programming opportunity that we've created this year. We started off with untangling the web of certifications. So really unpacking the different types of certifications and giving clarity around that. And of course, we had our certification day that brought together 8 certifying bodies in one room. So those attendees got a chance to go to each section, each table, ask questions, and even start the certification process. And then last week, we had a webinar called Doing Business with the State and Federal Government. And then today, we're going to wrap it all up and really dive into, I'm certified, now what? What do you do with those certifications now that you're certified? And we are privileged to have Veronica Clark of West Tennessee Apex Accelerator with us again today. And before we jump into our program, I do want to say thank you to our sponsors, Independent Bank and Wyatt, Tarrant and Combs. So following our sponsor address, which will be coming from Jeff Kimbrough from Independent Bank, we will go ahead and jump into our program with Veronica Clark leading our facilitation. Jeff?
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Kimbrough with Independent Bank. It is with great pleasure that we sponsor these events with the Small Business Council. So thank you to our amazing think tank and to our chamber as well. I do think that this series has been great. I've been following it, for the past month or so. Hope everyone has gained valuable information from it and hope that you are ready and are certified at the moment. Independent Bank is here for you. We're here for the community. We hope that everyone will make great progress with being certified. And with that, I want to say thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to being a resource to you if possible. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Super excited to be here with you all virtually to talk about a subject that's really important, certified, not what, now what. I am Veronica Clark. I'm with the Tennessee Apex Accelerator. I'm what you call your West Tennessee Apex Accelerator counselor. So what's the APEX stand for? It's not an acronym. We're no longer an acronym. We were formerly the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. But when you think about it, as you're climbing up a mountain, there's different stops that you need to make. You may need to talk to a banker. You may need to go talk to the Small Business Development Center. Also may need to go to the chamber for that networking to build those relationships. But once you get to the apex or the top of the mountain, that's when you're ready to do government contracting. So that's what we are. We're the top of the mountain. We're your one-stop shop for all your government contracting needs. So our funding partner, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, we're funded through the Department of Defense, Office of Small Business Programs through a cooperative agreement with the University of Tennessee, specifically the Institute for Public Service. That's how we are able to provide you with services at no charge. This is our Small but Mighty Apex Accelerator team. All you all are joining from the west part of the state. So I'm going to be your primary point of contact when it comes to doing your doing your government contracting needs. However, we do specialize in different areas. So sometimes you may see me copy Debbie, who's our Middle Tennessee counselor, on an email, or Yuta Bangs, who's our East Tennessee counselor, just depending on what your question surrounds. So We all work in tandem to help you all successfully compete for government contracts. So this is our small but mighty Apex team. I like to show this slide because if it does take me a minute to get back to you, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just I cover 30 counties and I'm one person, but I try to get back to you as quickly and respond as quickly as I can. This is the rest of our team, very similar to the government source selection team. We have a program manager who is Paul Middlebrooks, who's a visionary who makes sure we do what we say we're going to do. Jen D'Angelo's our program support specialist. Kathy Gillen Waters is our communication specialist. And our newest person on the team is our senior procurement specialist, Carl Weatherspoon. So at any time you can get emails from any of them. We just all work in tandem, again, with that goal of helping you successfully compete for government contracts. So how we help you all is through one-on-one counseling. We counsel you on how to do business with the government, how to get registered in the system for award management, how to get registered with the city of Memphis, help you with cybersecurity. Do you have a NIST score if you're wanting to do business with the federal government? What is your marketing strategy? Do you have an elevator pitch? Do you have a capability statement? Do you have a capability briefing? And so much more. Also do the same thing on training. I think our bread and butter is in our industry days where we connect you with those large prime contractors. So these are the steps for government contracting. The reason I like to show this slide is because when you're thinking about government contracting, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Yes, you can sprint out there, but there's a lot of times if you sprint out there, there's some foundational pieces that you may be missing. So we want to make sure that you have the business plan, that you've established your business model and legal entity, that you have those business banking relationships. And why that is important is because if you are certified and you want a contract, you want to be very proactive versus reactive. Thinking about it from this standpoint, if you won the contract today, can you float your expenses for the next 90 days? It's the government. They may not pay you on time. Will you be able to get the lights on in your business? That's why it's important to build those business banking relationships. So you might need a line of credit. Have you determined your niche in your commercial market? What do you do well? What are you going to be branding yourself as? Is it going to be cybersecurity? Is it going to be marketing? Or is it going to be facilities maintenance? And if you notice, all those things I just mentioned, I have them highlighted in blue. That's not our wheelhouse at the Tennessee Apex Accelerator. That's what we'd have you work with the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. You want to make sure that you determine your next codes, perform market research. Reason why performing market research is important, because you want to really figure out how the government's buying your products and services, which acquisition vehicle that they're utilizing. Determine your point of entry. Will you be the prime or sub on the job? That's important. If you have no prior past experience, more than likely you're going to be the sub on that job. And I always want you to think, have that kind of realistic talk with yourself and be self-aware. Think about it from this standpoint. If I am a roofing company, I have no experience, who are you going to use? Me with no experience or Jeff's company that has 20 years of experience? You're probably going to go with Jeff's company because you don't want rain coming into your house. You want to determine your target customer, federal, state, or local government. Remember, and they all have different certification requirements and they all have different registration requirements. So making sure that when you hit the ground running, that you've done everything that you needed to do on the back end. Register as a vendor with your target customer. Know your competition. Everybody on the call today has competition. Regardless if we think we have competition or not, we don't. Even at the Apex Accelerator, we do have competition. Make sure that you create that elevator pitch and capability statement. Perform market research to connect with small business specialists. Also research those certifications that are available. You want to also search those opportunities. Basically, you're still doing market research, but you're conducting more focused market research. You want to prepare bids and proposals. You also want to perform the requirements of the work. And I know I said a lot in a short amount of time on this slide. I always like to make the disclaimer that this is typically a 3-hour presentation that I'm condensing down to 20 minutes. So if I'm moving through the information quickly, it's because I'll have a lot of information to cover in a short amount of time. But I'm happy if you all have any questions, just to put those in the chat. But this just shows that this is a marathon, not a sprint. There's so many moving pieces when it does come to government contracting. Any questions about that slide? And this slide has been devised between some former Small Business Development Center directors and also on the Apex side to kind of give you a plan of action. And it's very important, once you get certified or once you're starting to do business with the government, that you do have a plan. And this is a roadmap that we have created for you all. I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm just going to keep moving forward. So I mentioned earlier when I was introducing our team, the government source selection team. It's very important for you to know at the federal level who is on the team. There's the program manager, who is the visionary for the program, making sure that they stay on track with their mission. There's the end user. A lot of times when we're having industry days, you won't have access to the end user. That's why it's very important when you're thinking about your elevator pitch, that if you have a very technical business, that you really speak in layman's terms, because a lot of times you're not getting to that end user. There's the contracting officer, technical representative. That's the individual that makes sure that you say you're going to do what you do once you get the contract. Then there's also the contracting officer. That's one of the individuals that has the authority to enter into and terminate your contract. Who would you say is the most important person on the team? And you can put that in the chat. Who's the most important person on the team? Is the contracting officer, or sometimes we call them a CO? Is it this core or the contracting officer, technical representative, the end user, or the program manager? Somebody put in there the contracting officer. Who else? Just one more person. Remember, the program manager is the visionary. End user is the person that may or may not know they need your products and services. The core is that person that once you get the contract, they make sure that you do what you say you're going to do. Then there's the contracting officer that has the authority to enter into or terminate your contract. So somebody put the contracting officer, somebody put the end user, Lindsay put all of them. The end user is ultimately who determines the market. Okay, I agree with what everybody says, but remember what I said about the contracting officer. They have the authority to enter into and terminate your contract. So I always will say that they're one of the most important pieces of the team when it comes to the government source selection team. I'm not discounting anybody, but we always don't have access to that end user. Then there's one more person on the team, and that's that small business specialist. When it comes to government contracting, that's your best friend. They are going to advocate on your behalf. So when you're thinking about it, if a contracting officer has not set aside a solicitation for a small business, that contracting officer has to give an account to that small business specialist and show why they didn't set aside that contract for small business. So keep in mind that small business specialist is like a gatekeeper. You want to make sure that if they ask you to do something, that you follow up with them so that they can refer you out for contracts or solicitations that are coming down the pipeline. But remember, a small business specialist, the gatekeeper, they're going to advocate on your behalf as a small business. I always say like to keep them very happy. They're that influencer on the team. Silent partner that we don't always think about. So now that you know who's on the team, let's think about how the government buys. There's acquisition websites, there's large prime contractors, there's local purchases, and then there's also centralized purchases as well. So I have this big complicated chart just to kind of walk you through how the federal government buys. There's going to be acquisition websites such as on SAM.gov or the System for Award Management. There's going to be bid boards and mailing lists. An example of a company that has a mailing list is the Tennessee Valley Authority. You have to be registered in Power Advocate for you to be able to get invites to bid or requests for proposal. There's large prime contractors. Best example that I always use is the Department of Defense or like Oak Ridge National Lab. They're a prime contractor for the Department of Energy. And those large prime contractors have a small business plan they have a certain percentage of work that they have to do with small business. So again, that's another acquisition vehicle that federal government uses. There's regional buying locations, local operations. Best example of that is the Veterans Administration, Visit 9, that's in our own backyard. They're purchasing for Mountain Home, Memphis, Nashville, Tennessee, and Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky's. My apologies, Kentucky. There's also the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Memphis District, along with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Nashville District. So those are examples of centralized regional buying locations. There's also local purchases. You need to know how the government's buying your products, because if it's not over $10,000, they can use their purchasing card. And then remembering too, if it's on SAM.gov, it should be over $25,000. Just wanted to go back and add that in. So they may not have to put it out for bid if it's under $10,000. So you may not see it marketed on SAM.gov. And then there's an example of an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. Best example of that is a GSA schedule. Have to be in business for 2 years and have sales of $100,000. They did just up that recently to having sales of $100,000. And when you're thinking about the GSA schedule, it's the government's version of Amazon. Every time I buy something on Amazon, and Amazon is not going back to that vendor to get pre-approved pricing or terms and conditions that's already been pre-approved. So think about the GSA schedule as acquisition vehicle, and it's the government's version of Amazon. Any questions about how the government buys? But it's really important for you to figure out how the government's buying your products and services, because it helps you make your targeted approach to how you're going to go after the federal government. With no questions on that slide, I'm going to keep moving forward. This is another example of how the government buys. The more complex your products and service, it's going to be request for proposal that can be negotiated, sole sourced out to you as well. Because remembering, the more complex your products and services, they're going to be concerned about your technical approach, your documented past performance, and who's on your management team and your contingency plan. The less complex your products and services are, it's going to be request for quote, invitation for bid, or indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. Just keep in mind, when it comes to like office supplies and janitorial supplies, they don't care about who's on your management team. They just care that you can ship the product on time, and then it's probably more than likely the lowest price technically acceptable. And that's how the government buys. And then I see in the chat, can you talk about how this relates to the state of Tennessee? So when I'm looking at this slide right here, very similar to the federal government, on the local purchases side, if it's under $10,000, they can use a purchasing card and they don't have to put that solicitation or that quote out for bid. They can just automatically call you up and utilize your services. If it's over $10,000, you have to provide, and you don't put it out for bid, you have to provide some type of technical justification on why this is the only vendor out there that you're utilizing those products and services for. A great question. So you've heard me mention the word market research. Market research is key when it comes to doing business with the government, whether that's local, state, or federal government. When you think about the acquisition cycle, there's a forecast. That's where the agency is going to publish their purchasing plans. Then there's the pre-solicitation phase. The requirements will become more defined. The competitive field will narrow. Solicitation or RFP, that's where the formal competition begins. And then there's contract award data, where you can find out from whom, how often the government historically has purchased your products and services. I have a question for you all. When you're looking at this acquisition cycle, what is the most important piece of the cycle? And this is where I get to play devil's advocate. What is the most important piece of the cycle? And you can put that in the chat. Is it the forecast? Is it the pre-solicitation, the solicitation, or contract award data? Somebody put in RFP. I got some pre-solicitations. If y'all could follow that question, why do you think it's the RFP? And why do you think it's the pre-solicitation? Anybody for contract award data or the forecast? Think about why. And I'm just gonna go through them again on the definitions. Forecast, where the agency publishes their purchasing plans. Pre-solicitation is where the requirements become more defined. The competitive field narrows. Solicitation or RFP is where the formal competition begins. Contract award date is where you can find out from whom and how often the government's buying your products and services. Dottie put, if the RFP isn't completed, these won't be contract awarded. Suzette put, because it's the requirements are defined. Okay. I want you all to think about the contract award data. Just think about it, because during the contract award, in the contract award data, that's where you could do your market research. I think all the phases are important, so I agree with that. But in the contract award data, I can find out from whom, how often the government's buying my products and services. When I take that information, let's say I'm meeting with Sherry Cordy with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I've used some market research websites like sam.gov, fpds.gov, or even usaspending.gov. And I've searched based on my NAICS code or my product service code. And I see that there's this contract that's coming up in the next year, and it's underneath the products and services I can provide to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I'm having a meeting with Sherry. I'm going to use that as leverage to see when that solicitation is going to be put out for rebid, if it's going to be put out for rebid. Also going to do market research on the incumbent on them. The incumbent is the individual that actually has the current contract. And I'm going to use that so when the agency publishes their next forecast, that they've already got me in mind. So think about using that contract award data to use it as leverage when talking to those contracting officers and buyers to build those relationships, showing that I see historically you bought my products and services from this individual. I'm never going to be negative about my competitor, but what I am going to do is talk about making my competitors' weaknesses my strengths. So also remember, a contract award date is an important phase because we want to use that as leverage. So when the forecast is put out, they're already thinking about me. But when those requirements become more defined, that in the pre-solicitation phase, that they're thinking about me. And I know the solicitations is sometimes already just set aside for me. And then I'm going to be awarded the information of the contract, I will say. Any questions about the acquisition cycle? And I will always say, sometimes if you wait until it's on sam.gov in the solicitation or RFP phase, it's already too late. Because you want to start building relationships before the solicitation comes out. So when you're thinking about seeing the solicitation, that it's pretty much just set aside for you. It may, sometimes they exclude other sources, which we have seen this. I have seen it a couple of times, so where it says that you've got to live within a certain mileage from the actual vendor. That lets me know they already had somebody in mind. And that's what you really want to use market research to work towards building those relationships. But contract award data is so important. And I always feel like it's a step that small businesses miss because there's so much rich information in it. I can reverse engineer who they're currently working with. I get how they're historically buying my products and services. Hate to keep going back through that, but it's very important. It's key. It helps you understand the language of the land. Text from someone asking to explain sam.gov. And how do you get contract? How do you get this information? Contract award data. So those are all great questions. I'm going to show you all briefly some websites that I utilize to get contract award data. I'm going to focus primarily on the federal government, but I can follow up with a handout to where you can go look for other information. One I'm just going to use off the top of my head because it's easy to kind of show you all is fpds.gov, and I will explain the other question on what sam.gov is. So what fpds.gov is the Federal Procurement Data System Next Generation. And it shows contracts that have been awarded from the federal level. So if it was awarded yesterday, it's already gonna be on fpds.gov. I always just search on here by a NAICS code, or you could also use a product service code, and you all may not know what that is. It's a cleaner approach than searching by NAICS code. And I know I'm introducing a lot of information, but again, condensing a lot into a small amount of time. So I'm gonna just search by NAICS code. I'm gonna use NAICS code 561720. I think that's janitorial services, or it is janitorial services. So when I'm looking on this website and I'm trying to slow it down, this is going to show me the top 10 departments in the federal government that are procuring my products and services. But within those departments is going to show me the top 10 agencies. So if I am procuring or my services fall under 561720, I'm going to be targeting the Army, GSA Public Building Services, Department of Navy, Department of Air Force, the VA, and the Department of State. And then just to take it a step further, if I'm looking for a potential mentor, subcontracting, or joint venture partner, these are the top 10 vendors or small or businesses that the government's using to procure 561720. And then I'm just going to sort this by date signed by clicking this. And this is going to show me opportunities that were just purchased on yesterday. I just want to show you all kind of how to do some market research, but that would be another class that I can show you all how to kind of go through that. But somebody mentioned sam.gov. sam.gov is where you go to register as a vendor with the federal government. So if you are certified, to get certified in the federal government, the first step is for you to have a SAM registration. That's the first thing that you must do. So you'll register to be a vendor on sam.gov, but you also can go and look for contract opportunities. I'm going to go to search. I'm going to deselect all domains, and then go to contract opportunities. I'm going to do product or service information, and then I'm going to do 561720. I'm still using janitorial. And then when you're doing the search on sam.gov, make sure the sort by says updated date. And then this is going to show me all those opportunities that are currently out there on sam.gov at the federal level that I can bid on. This shows me the current response date. This lets me know this is due today at 4 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's just true. It says 4 a.m. Who's up at 4 a.m.? But that was due at 4 a.m. this morning. This one's due at 11 a.m. on October 23rd. I'm just going to click in it kind of briefly for you all, because these are things and tips for you all to use that you're certified. You can follow the opportunity. If you're signed in and have an active cage code, you can look over to the left to see if you can add yourself to the interested vendor list. It will show up here, but that is at the discretion of the contracting officer. It is not always visible, but there's a lot of information you can read from here. This is a solicitation. It's due October 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here's where you can see that this is set aside for total small business. That means that only small businesses compete for this. That's that example of a product service code that you can search by as well. And then you just want to go through and read all of the attachments. And then this gives you some more information. Even if you don't want to bid on this, the primary point of contact, the secondary point of contact, these are the contracting officers. So you might reach out to them with your elevator pitch and capability statement to see if they have any other things coming down the pipeline that apply to your type of business. I want to pause for any questions over FPDS or SAM.gov. But this is how you can do some of your market research. And I will say, at the local level, Shelby County and the city of Memphis have similar websites where you can look to see who historically has purchased your products and services. All right, great question. How would you work with small business specialists on opportunities like these? So I would use this as leverage. I'll say for this one, let's say I'm not going to bid on this opportunity with the Army Corps of Engineers. I would speak with my small business liaison at the Army Corps of Engineers to see, because this is not, let's see what district this is. This is in the Kansas City district. So since I know Sherry Cordy, who's in the Memphis district, I would utilize this opportunity to have a conversation with Sherry Cordy, who's with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Memphis district, to see if they had a similar solicitation coming down the pipeline for the Memphis area. I also might reach out to Sherry's counterpart in the Nashville district, Yolanda Shingleton Scott, to see if there's another opportunity coming down the pipeline in the Nashville district, to see, and if it is coming down the pipeline, when and can you connect me with a contracting officer that's within our district? That's how I utilize this information with my small business specialist. And you can do that with even if this at the VA and it wasn't Vision 9, I would talk to Daryl to see who within the VA and Vision 9 is in charge of making purchases like this, and can you connect me with those individuals? But before you meet with your small business specialist, ensure that you have a capability statement, because they won't refer you out without a capability statement and some type of pitch. Any other questions on that? If not, can you give an example of a capability statement? I can. Let me pull up one. Just bear with me really quickly. I will show you an example capability statement. Just a second. And I will make sure to send Patricia the example capability statements that we have. I'm sorry, I'm having to pull up some stuff in my email. Here's an example of a capability statement. So she's one of our clients. So I can use this as an example. So this one didn't scan over well, so make sure when you scan, it does scan in color. But it's got her contact information. I would just recommend just having one phone number so I know exactly who to call. It's got her core competencies. And when you think about your CAPE statement, core competencies are those buzzwords or keywords around the products and services you provide. If you provide something that's very technical, keep in mind, like what I said earlier about the government source selection team. A lot of times you're not getting to that end user that speaks your language. You're getting to an individual like me. So if you do engineering, you've really got to keep it very simple. What are those words that I would search for your business by in the yellow pages? Keep that in mind. Then you also got to think about a brief description of your company, 2 to 3 sentences. Who have you done business with in the past? If you don't have any past performance, you can change that to experience. What are your differentiators? I like to spend time on that. What is that thing that measurably sets you apart? You should be able to tell me that. Why do I want to do business with you? What's your value proposition? That's important. It can't be that you're trustworthy, that you're honest, which is trustworthy, that you've got great customer service. How do you prove it? Be able to back it up with the metrics. And then last but not least, your company information, contact name, a phone number, an email address that connects back to your business domain, website domain, That's important. No AOL email, no Gmail email, no Hotmail. An email address that connects back to the domain name of your website, your CAGE code, if you want to do business at the federal level, your UEI, your NAICS codes, plus the descriptor, any certifications that you have, and a certified agency. And the reason why I say certified agency, there are so many different, you could be a DBE, which from last week means diverse business enterprise at the state level, or disadvantaged business enterprise, depending on who you were certified by. So it means different things, making sure that it's clear on what certifications that you have. And then I think that's just about it for your CAGE, for your CAPE statement. One-page document to entice me to want to do business with you. But I will make sure I'm making a note to myself to send some examples along with the website, a worksheet, I will say, not a website, but CAPE statement. What questions do you all have about this? This is something that we walk you through the process, but we have created a worksheet as an aid to help you kind of move forward on that. Any other questions? Capability statement, it's new to me, yes. And at the federal level, I will say that if you don't have it, they will send you back to us to make sure that you have one. And I know it sounds crazy, but they want to make sure that you put accepts credit cards. I'm like, well, everybody accepts credit cards, but now I'm like, that's my bias. Not every business, small business accepts credit cards. So making sure that you have that on there, because remember, from how the government buys, that they can use a credit card. So if you already have it on your capability statement, they don't have to put it out for bid. They can just call you up based on your capability statement. So make sure to also put that on there as well. But I'll make sure that you all do get that worksheet on the CAPE statement as well. Again, that's another training that we have. We have one coming up, I think October 8th sounds right, that we're doing a training on capability statements that you might want to join us for. So this is the system for work management, but I already took us there live. Again, you're going to go there to register to do business with the federal government, but you're also going to go there to look for and search for contract opportunities. It's supposed to be a one-stop shop. So you may be wondering like, oh, I can't be the prime on the job, but how can I find teaming partners? How do I look for them? You can use sam.gov as well to look for teaming partners. But when you're looking for teaming partners, you really want to date your teaming partners before you quote unquote marry them. What value does a partner app offer? What capability gaps do they fill? So that's where it's important, where I mentioned that SWOT analysis, that you've done a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Thinking, do you know their past performance or the experiences that the customer has? What is the customer experience when working with that teaming partner? Because everybody can present well on paper, but when you really dig down to asking their previous clients or customers, what type of experience did you have? And are they a good fit as a teaming partner? Everybody's not a good fit. Just like you don't marry everybody, you don't date everybody, you don't want everybody as a teaming partner. Because remember, as a small business, this is your business and your brand. And you could team with the wrong person and then make the wrong impression in the community. So that's how you can find a teaming partner. You can use the same questions to ask when you're looking for a subcontracting opportunity. You could also flip this too when you're looking for a potential mentor as well. And when you're thinking about responding to RFPs, you want to think about a couple of questions. Is it set aside for a small business or is it for full and open competition? If it's full and open competition, that's where you want to kind of be very self-aware that if I do drug screening, can I compete with Concentra? I think that's how you say it. Probably not when it comes to a pricing standpoint, and probably not because they're worldwide. So how can you get them to subcontract some of the work to you? Is this a recompete or new procurement? Again, by doing that market research, you'll be able to figure out, has this been put out before? From building a relationship, you might be able to ask the small business liaison. What capability gaps do you have? Are you actually, when you're looking at that statement of work, able to fulfill the requirements of the work? If not, do you need a teaming partner? Do you already have a teaming partner? Do you have enough time to establish a relationship to get a teaming partner? Again, building relationships takes time. I just don't want to meet you today and then I'm teaming with you tomorrow. Who are the incumbents or our competitors? What's your competitive edge? What's your value proposition when it comes to that? Do you know the customer and the customer needs? Have you built a relationship with the agency? Do they know you? And then do we have the experiences to support the opportunity? Again, if you don't have the experience, do you want to be a sub so that you can gain that experience? And if you don't have enough experience, do you have a teaming partner or do you have a mentor that can help you in that area? Can your teaming partner be an international company? It possibly could, depending on what type of work that you do. Because we want to make sure it could be, that the best way I could say is that your teaming partner could be an international company. Logistics and warehousing, as long as it's not you manufacturing any types of products and they're not going to like the Defense Logistics Agency and they have certain drawings and stuff, you should be able to team with an international company. But we could do a sidebar on that to look at the specifics of the solicitation. And we need to see which federal acquisition regulations are included on that solicitation to make sure that that's okay. But you can reach out to me directly on that piece. What other questions do you all have on responding to RFPs? Again, this is one slide on a 3-hour presentation that I have on responding to RFPs. But I wanted to tell you on a very high level, just a couple of tips on reading RFPs. Make sure you read the entire solicitation. We always get asked, what's the most important thing that we need to read? Everything. Because the minute we tell you not to read something, that's the most important piece. And I can say this, not knowing what you agree to on the front end can be costly on the back end, because if you agree to something that you can't do, the government still expects you to perform the requirements of the work, or they can terminate you for default, which is bad because you probably won't ever get another government contract, or terminate you for convenience. So just make sure that you understand the requirements and what you're signing up to do. If in doubt, follow up with us. Even though we're not attorneys, but we can sometimes help guide you to somebody that may be able to provide some guidance. And then I just have some brief summaries before I turn it back over. When it comes to government contracting, develop a target list of customers based on your geographic market focus. If you're a janitorial firm and facilities maintenance, is it realistic for you to bid on an opportunity and you live in Tennessee and California? Think about it. It's in California. How are you gonna get your team there? You've got to pay them a per diem. You've got to pay for them to stay at the hotel. You got to ship your equipment. Is that gonna be cost effective for you? Each agency has its own mission and focus. Market research is the secret to success. Again, there's that word, market research. Get involved with the agency in the forecasting stage of the procurement process. And I backed it up to the contract award data. Consider marketing to large primes as the subcontractors. Everybody tells you you love pie. I love pie. I do now. I love pie, but I don't have to have the entire pie. If Miss Tucker's making a pie and she only has a piece of the pie, I'm gonna take the piece of the pie. It's the same with government contracting. Yes, I want to work my way up to having the whole entire pie, but I'll take a piece. So think about being a sub. There are different purchasing thresholds for processes used by the government. Determine which one works best for your firm. In some fashion, the contracting officers in charge of implementing the procurement process, particularly on larger projects. So remember, they have the authority to enter into or terminate your contract. The small business specialist is the gatekeeper, and it's the key for meeting the program manager and the end user. They're upset, they're probably not going to introduce you to anybody. And then learn how to analyze solicitations in an efficient manner. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So how long does it take? It depends on, sometimes it's quick, sometimes it may take a longer time. I do want to invite you all, have this QR code that should take you to our upcoming trainings. I will say that we have a lot of on-demand trainings that are already curated for you all. based on like needs that we've seen, that we don't always have those trainings all the time. But we also have a lot of live trainings coming up and down the pipeline, particularly around around August 7th and 8th, because that's coming up with National Apex Day. This is my contact information. Just want to open it up for any questions that you all may have. And I recognize I gave you all a lot of information to kind of digest, but remember, these are bite-sized chunks of several 3-hour presentations that we typically get.
Veronica, thank you so very much. Gwendolyn? My partner in
Yes.
crime on certification series. Would you like to go first?
I can, Dottie. Veronica, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so helpful. This is really business development guidance at its best, right? And I love this concept about that it is a marathon and not a sprint. One of the things, a lot of times we can be kind of questioning how can we use certification. And I'd just like to share a couple of my experiences, and then Dottie, I'll turn it over to you. So when I first, my background is in publicly traded companies. So after 24 years I left International Paper and joined Ricks International at that time. And shortly after that, I had a contract with IP for a year after leaving, but there was one caveat. I had to get certified. And at that time, I got certified through MMBC as a minority business enterprise, an MBE. So I was able to leverage that particular contract, because if I had not gotten certified, if we had not gotten certified as a business, then there would have been no contract essentially. So that is my experience with a for-profit entity. We currently certified with Shelby County government. And actually, I've leveraged that in 2 ways with Shelby County. There was a prime who had reached out to me. They were looking at going after a contract here in the local market, and they were actually looking to find someone who could help them find and vet local partners. And so being able in that scenario, I was able to work with that particular prime. I was working as a sub, so that was a way that I leveraged my Shelby County government certification. And then I had an opportunity with the airport as a sub. So being certified as a DBE assisted me in that effort. So those are some examples of how I've leveraged those certifications to be able to grow in our business. All companies don't look for certifications. I've done some work with organizations, and the certification really doesn't matter. So it really depends on who your client is, what it is they're looking for. And that I always remember that just being certified doesn't necessarily get me a contract. It is an enhancement, but it's not necessarily something that can say, well, I'm certified and you should do business with me. That's never a reason to talk about why certifications matter. Now, Dottie, I know that you have some excellent examples as well, so I'll pitch it over to you.
Thank you. Unmuting is very helpful sometimes. And my story starts pretty much the same way that you did. As a recruiting firm, my first certification was through MMBC as a WBE, which at the time that you were still at International Paper, that was very important to them. And a lot of the recruiting that I did for them was critical that I had that certification. Most large corporations like International Paper, especially those who do any work with the government or across state lines, normally will look for a WBE or an MBE to go to first for some of their things. I was referred to the airport for the first contract that I had there as a WBE, and the airport is the one that suggested to me, why don't you get your DBE? And it was 20 years ago, and I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. So I got my first DBE certification, that disadvantaged business certification through MMBC, and then followed up later to continue that certification process through the airport. And we've been very lucky. We've had several contracts with them as a prime for small staffing projects, some recruiting positions, and then a large project that we held ourselves for about 7 years, where we had up to 40 employees that were ours working on a specific project. And that moved us to when we did projects as a subcontractor to several of the primes on the very large construction projects. And for those of you who don't think you can do something like that, because especially for us, it was my workers' comp. I can't supply people that are going to dig ditches for the airport or lay electrical cable for the airport. But by going to the pre-bid meetings, which are critical for some of those things, most of your government contracts, we found out that some projects, the workers' compensation piece, is covered by the owner. It's called an OSIP, or an owner-controlled insurance program. And little old me didn't have to have workers' compensation that would cover those construction projects. We're very lucky. We just finished our third project, construction project. So if you are concerned, will your insurance cover it? Will it not cover it? Go to those pre-bid meetings. We meet with the prime contractors. We've never done federal contracting. Ours has always been local, either to the airport, to MATA for our DBE, or local companies that look for us to have the WBE certification. But it's been very helpful. But for those of you who are looking for contracts, especially with the government, the airport, MATA, any of the government, find out when those pre-bid meetings are, go to them, introduce yourselves to the prime, make them understand what you can do and how you can be a partner with them. It has been incredibly helpful for us. We've been very, very lucky. Thank you, Gwen. Q&A, it's all yours. Or Larry. And both of our co-chairs for the Small Business Council are here. And I'm sure that they'd like to say something. Hey, Patricia.
Hello, I was
Robin's
just
been
gonna
inserted.
say, if anyone has any questions, this is the time to pose those, but Meredith will come on after that particular session. So the floor is open for additional questions. This has been an extremely valuable meeting, and I look forward to sending you all the follow-ups that Veronica has provided. Okay, if there are not additional questions, Meredith, I will turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Patricia. Yeah, and I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. I want to thank Veronica for the amazing amount of helpful information that she shared with all of us. I know it'll take a minute for all of us to digest and kind of to figure out our next step actions from there. But this session did close out essentially what was a 4-part certification series that I want to give a shout out to Gwendolyn and Dottie for pulling all of this together and making it possible. They were the great masterminds of this series. Really focused on helping you all understand what the certifications are that are out there, then ideally getting you connected to the people who can help you get certified, and then truly understanding then how you can leverage those certifications, because ultimately the goal is to get connected to business opportunities, right? And so that's what we're all interested in, and how are those certifications going to help you do that? So as always, would love to continue to hear your feedback around what is helpful to you as you think about and plan for the growth of your business. So, please reach out to Patricia or myself. Any one of our think tank members I know are happy to hear from you and take your ideas back. so that, we can include them in our planning for the subsequent years. I will also do a plug for our small business think tank subcommittees. So if you want to get more actively involved in the work of this Small Business Council, reach out to Patricia. We can get you connected to our sign-up sheet for those committees. Thank you all. Patricia, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you all for joining us. We do have an event coming up on October 3rd featuring Bill Donovan, and he has been touring the city talking about why Memphis. We have a jewel in our city of Memphis, and he will be sharing what we should be sharing with our peers and with those who we come in contact with. And he has a very engaging presentation. So I know that we're probably approaching full, if not already, but just check out the website and any other events that you see that you would like to plug into. Feel free to register for those, but we appreciate your time. And if you're not part of the Greater Memphis Chamber officially as an investor, we can help you with that too. Have a wonderful rest of your day and take care.